Welcome back. Barricades are up in New York City and the nation's capital. Security teams are in place, all ahead of any protests if former President Trump is indicted.
Well, Illinois former Governor Rod Blagojevich is reacting to the news of a potential arrest of President Trump. You may recall in 2009, Rod Blagojevich was indicted by a federal grand jury, and that resulted in a highly publicized arrest that made international news. And he's joining us at this hour right now in studio to talk about prosecutors who target their political opponents. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, you know, I saw your tweet yesterday. I want to pull it up here really quickly, and I want to read part of it here. And in this tweet, you say, and this is in reference to the potential arrest of President Trump. If we have it, we'd like to bring it up there. Well, the weaponization of prosecutions is new politics in America. Both sides do it, and if it isn't stopped, it will destroy our country. On the eve of what might be an unprecedented arrest of American presidents, the need for congressional oversight to rein in these unchecked, weaponized, corrupt prosecutors has never been greater. And you say here that you have real life experience in this. Why did you tweet that out?
Well, first of all, I've experienced it myself, and I've said it from the beginning, and I'll never stop saying it. I didn't break a law, cross the line, or take a penny. It was all politics that they arrested me on and sent me to prison for. Conversations that were started by then President-elect Obama. Now, he didn't do anything wrong. It was a political deal. He wanted to do horse trading. And he went under the White House for 8 years. I went to the Big House for 8 years, and I'm back. President Trump was the reason why. But putting aside the personal gratitude that I have for him, this shouldn't happen to any American president or any political leader when they criminalize things that aren't crimes. And we're looking at the possibility of an American president being arrested, indicted, and charged for things that are not crimes. And these weaponized prosecutors have been emboldened, and they get motivated by political purposes. And as a result of that, they're going to destroy our democracy. I said in a previous tweet that not since the state of South Carolina fired at Fort Sumter and started the Civil War has our republic been in more danger, and it is. The people, we the people, have the right to choose our leaders in free and fair elections. If we don't like Donald Trump, and a lot of people don't, vote against him. But don't trump up fake charges and arrest a president or anybody, because all of us are entitled to equal protection under the law.
Can I just ask you, what was it like personally to know that your adversaries are watching this process as you are arrested?
Well, I was arrested before I was indicted. They arrested me at 6 o'clock in the morning at my home. I was a sitting governor. It never happened before. I didn't expect it. I thought it was State Senator Jimmy DeLeo calling me to play a practical joke, is what I actually thought. But it was shocking. And we had 2 little girls living in our home, our babies, our daughters. It was the beginning of what was a long, hard journey. They brought my life to ruin. It was calamity that came upon us, as the scriptures teach us, like a whirlwind. And of course, your political enemies, they love it, and your political friends, they run away because people are afraid of these prosecutors. And if you don't toe the line with these prosecutors, they'll destroy you. No one even says that I took a penny. They gave me 14 years in prison because I fought back, and I would never give in because they hijacked a governor elected by the people of Illinois.
Well, it's interesting that you say that you fought back, and you did it very publicly with the cameras. I mean, there are some parallels between you and President Trump. I mean, you both have this charisma. You have a bit of an ego. I mean, you got to do that in order to be in that kind of role. And, you know, some would say you have the ability to lead people that follow you. And you're not afraid of the cameras, and you were very publicly out there fighting, as he has.
Yes.
Has that hurt or helped you?
Well, I got 14 years for that. They were floating 18 months after they failed to convict me at our first trial, but I would never give in because I was the governor of Illinois, elected by the people. And I should thank the people who voted against me in 2006 when I was reelected, because had there been more of them, I wouldn't have gone to prison. But I was elected, and I had a responsibility to stand up for the rule of law. Now, had I done something wrong, I have a responsibility to accept responsibility and accept the consequences. But I didn't. They stole a governor from the people. They were corrupt prosecutors, and I see the same thing happening to Trump. They shouldn't do it to a Democratic governor. They shouldn't do it to a Republican president. They shouldn't have done what they did to Bill Clinton in the 1990s. They shouldn't do what they're doing today to President Trump. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, we the people should not stand for this.
But if this does happen, of course, Trump right now is the only one who's saying that this is going to happen today and, you know, maybe tomorrow. What will, you know, walk us through what will happen, what he can expect, and if you have any advice for him?
Well, my advice for him is to stay true to himself and fight for what you believe in. And I believe he'll do that. He's a fighter. What's interesting is we have a Mike Madigan, who's in the dock now, and he hides behind closed doors. He's not out there asserting his innocence like innocent people do. I suspect President Trump will be just the opposite of that. But he's going to have to suffer personal indignities. I mean, when they arrest you like that, they put handcuffs on you, they fingerprint you, strip search you, full body cavity strip searches. I had 8 years in prison and dealing with those sorts of things when you want to visit your family. When your family comes and visits you, hopefully it'll never get to that point with him. But no, he's going to have to go through a lot of personal travails. Unprecedented, again, that we would treat an American president, whether we like him or not, that way, for things that aren't crimes. And that's the key part. They're not crimes. No one's above the law, but no one's below the law. When you're out there running for president and a leading candidate in one party, and you're being prosecuted by a member of the other party in a place that's not going to be fair to him because they're all Democrats there in New York, this is really bad.
What would you say, because we don't know if he's going to be arrested, we have no confirmation, this has only come from him, but as the world is watching what's playing out in America right now with a former president, you know, what do you think that says to the world, you know, in terms of, you know, America's standing?
America's becoming a banana republic. We're losing sight of what we're supposed to be about, and that is to have a reverence for the rule of law, constitutional government. No one is above or below the law, but the law has to be followed, and you don't change the law and make up fake law to go after people for political reasons. That's what this is, the weaponization of prosecutors who are criminalizing things that are legal, routine, and necessary in both politics and in government.
Okay. Well, former Governor Rod Blagojevich, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I like the hair.
Thanks.
It looks good.
It's getting darker. Have you noticed?